Holy cow, man. It's just been a crazy week for Xbox, a crazy couple weeks for Xbox, really. And this interview with Phil Spencer and the kind of funny XCast crew, when it came out, I had so many different thoughts about what was happening. And just like a lot of people, tons of videos of people breaking down the things he said, what was right, what was wrong. And just, this has been just like the cherry on top of this week for Xbox, I think. This was just as low as I think they could have sunk, with essentially everyone saying how Phil Spencer's waving the white flag. He's quit on Xbox gamers, he's quit on the console market. And I do have a lot of things that I like that Phil Spencer said, but there's so much things that are wrong with what Phil Spencer said, man. But before we get into this video, there is a couple things I want to shout out. First things first, I want to shout out a great thank you to Kinda Funny and the whole XCast crew. I think this interview that they did was phenomenal. I think they didn't really shy away from some of the tough questions. They really kind of let him have it, as well as kind of humbling him. So bravo to them. I didn't expect them to ask some of the questions that they did, or to even just be as blunt as they were. There were a couple things that I wish they kind of hit on, but that's neither here nor there. They definitely didn't want to kick the man while he's down, and I get that. The second shot I want to do is actually to Phil Spencer. I think it is very brave of him to kind of come out here at a time like this and kind of speak candidly. Even though I do believe most of it is bullshit, and that's neither here nor there, but we got to give him some credit for at least coming out there. And a lot of people could have hid and waited for this to kind of like he could have just waited for this whole situation to go away, but he didn't. He took his lumps like a champ, and it is what it is. We're here now, and he's got to deal with the fallout of that. The last thing I do want to shout out is I am a huge fan of the Xbox brand, even though I disagree with their management team and a lot of the decision making that's going on currently. I do really love the brand of Xbox, at least the Xbox that I grew up with. So Gears of War, Halo, these are iconic IPs that I feel like helped push the gaming industry forward. And I feel like it has been a long time since we kind of felt that, and which is why when I see Phil Spencer talk about the things he's talking about right now, it definitely really, really pisses me off. And I hate the whole like sentiment of Phil needs to get fired, but something needs to change. We need to see some quick change. Phil needs to either man the F up, go out there, yell at your team, fire some people, something, motivate them. Whatever you gotta do something though. The thing that I feel like is bothering me the most is how stagnant he feels. I feel like he's not really showing any kind of passion. He's just kind of taking his lumps, rolling up in the fetal position, and just tapping out. And it's embarrassing, to be honest. But whatever. There's a lot of key things that I want to like bring out about this interview. Overall, it was a very good interview. If you guys haven't watched it, go ahead and take your time to watch it. But a couple of the noticeable things that I remember him mentioning. So pretty early on the interview, he wants to kind of change the narrative of what's going on with Redfall. He starts mentioning how he doesn't want to change the creative direction of some of his teams, that he feels like game development should be this kind of creative process, and that the kind of publishers and executives shouldn't really stifle that. And I 100% agree with that. That is a great sentiment to have. The problem I feel is that how is Redfall creative? I feel like, in what sense is Redfall the most creative thing Arcane Studios came out with? Arcane Studios, they're the people behind Dishonored, Prey, Deathloop. Like, how is Redfall their creative approach to gaming? What about it is different or innovative? So I don't want to put words in Phil's mouth. I'm just gonna play a clip, and then you tell me if I'm right or wrong about this one.
One thing I won't do is push against creative aspirations of our teams. Then a lot of people will say, hey, you've got teams know how to do one kind of game. Just force them to go do the one kind of game that they have a proven track record for.
Real smart, Phil. I see what you did there. You're changing the narrative. Bravo to you. Kudos. You're acknowledging the problem without actually giving any solutions. Bravo. I do want to point you in the direction of one other publication of gaming, and that's Big Daddy Mario, the Red Team, Nintendo. I think arguably probably one of the best gaming publishers and first party developers that we have currently right now. So I feel like it's good when he says things like he doesn't want to force his development team to make things that they don't believe in, that they're not passionate about, or they're not creative for, and they don't want to kind of pigeonhole them into one kind of game. And I 100% get that. And Nintendo is proof that yes, that can work. When Zelda team moved from making their traditional style Zelda games, took a big risk on one of their biggest IPs in one of the riskiest times Nintendo could have during the end of the Wii U era and going into this new idea of the Switch. Nintendo rolled the dice on Zelda team to create a game that was not only innovative but changed genres, changed what we thought of Zelda, and was at a very pivotal moment where Nintendo needed to be firing on all cylinders, and it proved you can be creative and make games that are not only profitable but genre defining and can save your butt as a company. And again, Nintendo has proven this, not just with Zelda, but they've done it time and time again. And again, this is an example of what letting your creative team be creative but also coming out with polished work. So take notes, Phil. The next big issue I have with what Phil Spencer said in this interview was he was saying how as a game publisher, they're going to be publishing some high 80s games, they're going to be publishing some low 60s games. That's just kind of like what it's like to be a game publisher. And I get it. Most publishers, yeah, you're going to have some misses. But it's not something that you kind of strive for. And not to say that he strived for this, but again, Nintendo proves that you can publish high quality games consistently. I think pretty much since the Nintendo Switch and even deep into the Wii U, they have been publishing 80s to 90s level games for pretty much the longest time. And it's not impossible to hit these goals. I think Microsoft just needs to raise their standard of what they're allowing to come through and slip through the cracks. Again, I'm going to play another clip of him saying this. You guys tell me if I'm wrong or right about whatever he's saying.
It's in a Redfall specific conversation,
Right.
but we will build games that review in the high 80s, and we will build games that review in the 60s. I mean, it's just kind of part of being in game publishing. And if you're afraid of that, then you shouldn't be in the entertainment business. You shouldn't be in the games business. That said, every time we deliver something below our own internal expectations that surprises us, we should check our process. I don't look at the review scores on Redfall, and there are quality issues, and we're working on those. But I think there's a fundamental piece of feedback that we get that the game isn't realizing the creative vision that it had for its players. That doesn't feel like hey, just delay it. That feels like the game had a goal, the game didn't hit their own internal goals when it launched. I think it's maybe a little simplistic to just say, hey, if you would have just delayed it 3 months, the core creative of the game would have delivered on something that was different than what it was.
So again, him stating how they don't aim to do 60 level games, but sometimes it just things slip through the crack. As well, he started to mention things about like had they delayed the game, would it had improved the game? No, because at the core fundamentals of the game was not fun. There's nothing that delaying it would have been helping it, and I get that. My biggest thing with that though, Phil, is that if you see this game and you see that it's not fun and it's not up to standards and it's probably going to be a 60-70 style game, scrap that game. Scrap it, restart, go back to the drawing board, do what you need to do to make this game fun, because that's what your fans want you to do. Because yeah, you released a game instead of not releasing a game, but was it worth it? Nintendo, again, a big example is with Metroid Prime 4. When they announced Metroid Prime 4, they looked into the game after a couple years of development. It was terrible in their own eyes. There was no way they were going to release Metroid Prime 4. Scrapped that, threw it in the pile, restarted development, and sure, people make jokes about Metroid Prime 4. People get mad that we don't have Metroid Prime 4 yet. But we know damn well when Metroid Prime 4 comes out, it is going to be an amazing game. It is going to be awesome and probably one of the best games of whatever console it's going to release on. We know this because Nintendo has built that track record, that nothing is going to slip through their cracks unless it's Nintendo quality, and the Nintendo fans deserve that. Xbox fans are just clamoring for a game at this point, and Phil Spencer was too scared to delay the game further. Even if delay the game a year, delay it a year, whatever it takes to get this game to a fundamentally better place where it would be a fun game at its core. And if that meant scrapping it and going to a completely different project, not even ever releasing Redfall, that is fine as well. And I get it, it's money lost. But you were willing to spend $69 billion acquiring Activision Studios, not to mention all the extra legal fees that it's going to cost to get that through, all the travel fees that you did traveling around the world, whatever it took. You're willing to spend that on a studio that's not even yours yet, on a publisher that isn't even yours yet. Why not reimburse that money into your teams that you have? Get them into a position where they're making quality games again, man. And you just wasted $3 billion for no reason. You could have spent $3 billion making Redfall a fun game, but you didn't. The next thing he mentions that really stood out to me was how they go through their mock review process, how they review the game internally to have a good idea where it's going to land on release day. And he said that Redfall was double digits below what their mock reviews were being. Double digits below? And not even critically. Anybody who got their hands on this game said the exact same thing. It is a boring game when it's performing well, and it's a terrible game when it's not performing well. It's not fun co-op. It's not fun solo player. It's not a fun game. Who in your team internally told you this game was going to be a 70 or an 80? Who? And Phil Spencer, you play games, you claim. You played Redfall prior to release. There's no way in hell you're thinking Redfall is a 70 or above game. There's no way. And not to mention, even if it was, like, let's say you thought, okay, maybe this might be a 72. Your fans deserve more than a 72. You should be aiming for 85s and above. If it goes below 85 and above, oh well. We messed up. We made a 78 game. No big deal. That's fine. But you released a game maybe thinking it'd be a 70, maybe thinking it'd be an 80, and this is where the problem lies. You guys don't have your own quality standards that you guys can say is what you want to release your games at. So your games are going to be all over the place. You might get lucky with a Pentiment that does 90s. You might get lucky with something like Grounded or Hi-Fi Rush, but I'm starting to think it's just luck. And internally, Xbox, the management team, do not know what a good game looks like or plays like. Internally, they do not know how to assess the game properly. And this is why we're getting these kind of hits and misses all over the place. Again, maybe I'm wrong about this. I'm going to insert another clip just because, again, I want to make sure I'm clear on this one. And I'm just going to let him say it the way he said it in his interview.
And the score, yeah, we do mock reviews for every game that we launch. And this is like double digits lower than we thought we would be.
Again, what were you thinking this game was going to release to? You must have played the game. You have people who played this game. There's no way you were thinking that this game was a 70 or an 80. I'm sorry. If everyone playing the game is saying it's 60 or below. And performance issues aside, the game fundamentally is not a fun game, and you know this. Now, two things either happened here. Either people internally at Microsoft and Xbox do not know what a game is supposed to play like and how it feels to have fun playing a game, or they don't care. And either or, it's just depressing to think about. And listen, prior to Redfall's release date, I don't think anyone was expecting Game of the Year quality. No one was expecting Redfall to rival God of War or even Horizon. I get that. But I was hoping that it was going to be at least a fun game and it wasn't going to be this bad. And yeah, Arcane was already working on the game prior to Xbox purchasing them, so it just made sense to let them finish this game. But if we knew the backlash that was going to happen, I would have told Xbox, hold that game, trash that game, do something that's not releasing this game in the state that you're releasing it in. He also makes notice that he kind of washes his hands of the quality of Arcane Studios Redfall right now, and he does it by saying how Redfall was already in production once they acquired Bethesda and Arcane Studios. And I get that, but again, you should have at any point in this process saw the game, saw how unfun it was, and made the decision not to release this game. And he does mention how there was communication issues. They should have sent in people that they trusted more to kind of help Arcane Studios get this to the quality that Xbox expects from their games. I don't know what they expect from their games anymore. I don't think they have an Xbox quality of polish that they expect from games. I think they're thinking Arcane Studios is a studio that makes 80s, 90s style games. Arcane don't miss, so let them do their thing. And I get that idea kind of, but you got to understand these are people you don't know, you don't trust yet. You should have sent you should have sent people from Rare. You should have sent Mike Booty. You should have sent people to hyper focus on this game. That way when it came out, it would have felt more like you're involved in this and you had part of the problem. You had more of the problems that you should be bearing. And I will say he does take ownership in some of those issues, and it's something that he mentions that they're going to be working on in the future. One final thing that I do want to mention about this whole interview was how defeated and unconfident Phil Spencer looked. And I feel like Phil Spencer is starting to realize that he has no idea what he's doing or what games he's releasing. When internally they thought Redfall was going to be a 70 or an 80 and they missed it so hard on this one, he doesn't seem confident anymore in what he's doing. And I feel like, again, the cracks are starting to show. And it doesn't make me feel confident in him as the leader of Xbox anymore. I think they definitely need someone with a more game focused mentality, someone who can identify a game and say this is a fun game or this is a good game or there's something redeemable in this game. That way they can rewrite this course. And I get it, working with different teams and acquiring different studios is a hard thing to do and have them adjust to whatever it is that you want. And it makes it that much more difficult when you yourself don't really know what you want. I think Microsoft is in a business right now of acquiring studios that they see are making great games, not just critically, but also profitably. And they're saying, let's buy them so they can make games for us. And that's just the wrong mentality if they want to get back in the race, which I don't think they care anymore. I think they just want to release games as they release games, and if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad, as long as they're getting subscriptions and Game Pass, and I get that. I just think the Xbox brand deserves more. And if you look at, again, like what PlayStation is doing, what Nintendo's doing, and their quality of games that they're releasing are all 80s, 90s. They're up for different nominations at the Game Awards every year. It's just night and day with how these companies are operating. And look, Sony might be formulaic with their games. They might have a formula that all their games can kind of get pigeonholed into, but it's a damn good formula, and they spend time perfecting and mastering that formula to get it right for them. And they have different teams working on different ideas to create different kind of worlds that are creative. Nintendo is on this roll when it comes to releasing games. They release fun, different, creative games, no matter the publisher that they're working with. Sure, we'll give Pokemon Scarlet and Violet not a pass, but I get why they did that. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet made money. And Xbox, Redfall is not gonna make you money. So what is the gain in releasing it in this state? That's what baffles me. What do you gain as a company releasing games like Redfall? Releasing games undercooked like Halo Infinite. Games that would do better if they were held off and you release them in better states. They'd probably make more money for you in the long term. And they're not in this for the long term game. They're in this to say, we guess what game we just put into Game Pass this month. Anyways, I'm going to end it with this just because this video is going on way too long, longer than I ever expected it to be. There's just a lot that I wanted to dissect, and there's a lot more I could have dissected, but I mean, I'm just going to leave it to you guys. Watch the interview if you guys are interested. Get your points that you think. If you're an Xbox fan and you stand with Phil Spencer, or if you're just anybody of a fan and you stand with Phil Spencer and the things he said, let me know down below. Sound off. let me know if I'm wrong, because believe me, I want to be wrong. These are just the takes that I gathered from this interview. And with that, I'll see you guys on the next video. Like the video, please. Subscribe, please. Thank you guys.